Thank you for staying with us on AM Live. This is what we are discussing this morning with my panelists, and that is who is the real Mau Mau, the scramble for Mount Kenya. But first, let's start with getting my panelists' thoughts on this headline. Closing ranks, move by warring groups gives parliamentary talks a chance in polls row. Omulo, with this bipartisan committee, it seems it is one step forward, two steps back. Because I remember the last time I reported on this, I was in studio, and I remember Kimani Ichung'wah had said, it is time we start talking with each other and not at each other. But immediately after that, they began talking at each other. Why do you think it's this whole, we keep going through this one step forward, two steps back?
You know, it only indicates that the Azimio side is not genuine with the demands that are making to Kenyans, because remember, when they started the process of picketing or maandamano, it was very clear on the issues that they were raising that they needed to be implemented by Kenya Kwanza government. And therefore, you know, Ruto, who is the President of the Republic of Kenya, gave a pronouncement that we use parliamentary system to address these issues, because most of them, if you look at them, these people were talking about the server, they were talking about the IBC, they were talking about the cost of living. But, you know, the government has taken steps in addressing the issues such as the cost of living. We told them that the server is not in our possession. We told them that the IBC, now they can start discussing it in Parliament. Now, having realized that this maandamano was not going anywhere, because Kenyans have realized that the real agenda of Azimio was not, you know, taking effect, because, you know, the country is bigger than individual. So Kenyans realized that maandamano was not the only solution for them. You remember the last maandamano did not take up because Raila was not even there. The people did not come out in large numbers as opposed to the previous maandamano. So you look at the real issue why they were going back to maandamano. It is because of one member of parliament who is purported to be a Jubilee member of parliament who was part of the team of Kenya Kwanza, who is Canaan. That was the contention in that front. On the other side, we were also telling them that we were asking them to remove Kosing, David Kosing, who is also a member of Kenya Kwanza. So, you know, there was a hard line between the two sides. But that could have not informed why they are going for maandamano. So when we realized that, you know, the country is bigger than individual, you know, because we are genuine, we are just telling Azimio guys that we are genuine. And that's why we accepted to remove Canaan from the team, because there are so many members of parliament who can present the interests of the people. So before even the talk starts, I think that was not a genuine reason for Azimio to call for maandamano. So I think I'm very happy that they have accepted that now it is high time that they address these issues within Parliament, within the parliamentary process which was proposed by the President of the Republic of Kenya. We are also happy that they have accepted to create the Office of the Opposition Leader, which we had proposed and they refused, which is going to inform how they are going to address the issues in terms of oversight and in terms of, you know, the duties that are supposed to do as opposition. So okay. It is high time, and we expected it because maandamano was not going anywhere. So it is the high time that they, you know, realize that Kenya is bigger, because, you know, Azimio, they are using people to bargain. They are using people to blackmail the president. And we said that we are not ready for handshake. We are not ready to admit anybody into this government. So long as you play your role as the opposition, we play our role as government. So right. That is what I can say.
Now, as for whether KUP, because you mentioned Kosing is a member of Kenya Kwanza, as to whether KUP is Azimio or Kenya Kwanza, Azimio have said hiyo ni chama yetu bado, hawajasonga formally to Kenya Kwanza. But there's also something else you said about Azimio was not genuine. Is that fair? Because the reason Azimio has given for going back or calling for maandamano again is not only because of the Canaan issue. They say you call the bipartisan talks to say we will talk to each other. other, and then out there, your principals speaking another language. But something else he said, Wanja, is that you realized Maandamano is not going anywhere. This was the headline, the Daily Nation headline yesterday, why Raila's city protests flopped. Is that the reason you took the decision to suspend them today?
Okay, right. First, thank you, Olive, for hosting. Good morning to all the viewers of AM Live. I'll just by talking, I'll start by saying that that headline is, for me, it's actually misleading. When you say it flopped, flop could be synonymous to failure, failure to take off, failure for it to take place. But for us, we don't term it as flopping. We just term it as a developing issue which was informed by the events of yesterday, which include the Kenya Kwanza removing Canaan from the 7-member bipartisan team. You know, they say that if you are coming to equity or if you are coming to a table of negotiation, you should come with clean hands. So there was obviously at most bad faith, contempt, ridicule, when they went ahead to pick Canaan, who is a member of Jubilee Party, to be a discussant of the other side. Certainly they have been making that issue of Kosing, who is a member of KUP, but I might also inform them that in the coalition agreement of Azimio, there is a place where it says that even if your coalition opts to leave coalition A, as an individual who went to Bunge or to the Senate or to the County Assembly, informed by the good policies of Azimio, you can opt to remain as an individual. So I don't know why they keep claiming Kosing and saying that Kosing is a member of their coalition, yet Kosing is there and you have not seen him squabbling or saying that he's uncomfortable being there. That said, as it were, as KUP is still a member of Azimio coalition. That said, allow me just to add and say that Maandamano first, which is in Article 37 of the Constitution, where you can do what you wish, picket, submit petitions to public authority. There's nothing illegal. It is not foreign. People have picketed all over the world. I'm sure the last time I checked, the French people were just walking and they were replicating our sufuria movement. Even the French were walking with our sufuria. Clearly, our movement is going beyond our borders. Before we got to this Maandamano, which I would say it was a move of last resort, there were events, and unless someone is new in Kenya really, they would have seen events that preceded this issue of Maandamano, which include the 14 days. It was in the beginning of the year, there were events including 14 days in which the leader of Azimio had even given the government, by the way, within 14 days, try and address this issue, high cost of living, this and that, this and that. For us, and saying that the Maandamano flopped and the people are not with us, it would even be ignorant to say that the people are not with a coalition in which they voted in their millions. Are people who are speaking their language and are people who is speaking into their problems. Cost of living, cost of unga, cost of school fees, cost of sitima, cost of such things. So certainly I see quite a lot of public support, a lot of desire for people to be with us. But on this issue of bipartisan, there was utmost drama, there was utmost ridicule. You could tell top officials in the side of Kenya Kwanza outside walking around making such utterances that could be deemed to sabotage and to show that there is no goodwill. I might also add on this issue of bipartisan, we had also talked about the issue of extra parliamentary discussions, where we are saying there's nowhere that is written that if the bipartisan talks are ongoing, we cannot also have other discussions happening at a town hall in Mathare to listen to the women leaders of Mathare. You see, extra parliamentary means that we know that there are leaders in this bunge, but clearly they have also shown that they quickly move and cross the floor, and that's why people like Kenan, who went as Azimio, now they're advancing the policies of Kenya Kwanza. And therefore we are saying, because the of elders, for example, when they elected Kenan, they wanted him to advance the issues of Azimio, and that's why they voted for him. It seems then we might miss a critical voice of the people of Eldas because the MP has crossed the floor. So what are we saying? Extra parliamentary, or saying that let us have robust discussions. Simply put, it is saying, as we are having the discussions with Wabunges, we can also have other events that are concurrent. For example, a town hall in Gatondo North, where we meet church leaders, we ask them, what is ailing this country? So for me, the debates and the political sentiments and the many explanations, for me, I see it as an extension of public participation, because there are critical voices that we might miss when we put people who are quick to cross the floor, voices of women, voices of youth, voices of the Mount Kenya, people whom you've asked who are the real Mau Maus. So I see it as just advancing and enriching the discussion that is going to make Kenya better.
All right. Kidi Mwaga, are Azimio shifting? Do you see good faith from the Azimio side? Because Wanja has talked about an extra parliamentary process. When President William Ruto called for these talks, he had said they would address the reconstitution of IEBC. In your view, are Azimio shifting the goalposts, and does that, to you, communicate good faith?
First and foremost, I want to extend congratulations to the office of the majority leader for quickly accepting the request from the Azimio coalition, so that these talks do not stall over trivialities, and then so that this conversation can then move to the substance. However, Olive, I must also hasten to add that on 30th of January, the rule of intellectual engagement is that you do not quote the rule of the thumb is that you do not quote yourself. But permit me to break that rule by quoting myself, that on 30th of January, I wrote on the Standard that the Azimio game plan will flop, for it is 5 years too late. The way the Azimio have attempted to reenact the maandamano, to any keen observer, it is not lost that they are trying to reenact the people assemblies of 2018. One thing that they're also missing is that circumstances are entirely different. While in 2018 there could have been legitimate concerns about electoral justice, in 2023 they're using maandamano to relitigate a matter that is sufficiently settled. Going forward, they are saying that in 7 months that the president should have done magic. Of course, everyone knows that when governments get into office, and especially in difficult times like we are, it usually takes time for the policies of that government to take effect. And if anything, it has also been demonstrated that the maandamano that they are calling, while it is within their rights under Article 37, but we must also constantly remind our friends like Wanja that rights must also be exercised responsibly. Because the question is, when they are calling maandamano today to address the cost of living, the first question I will put to them, that what has the MPs done in Parliament to address arrest the question of the cost of living? Secondly, when they claim to be people who believe in democracy, we know that institutions have got the pride of place. So what is the role of institutions to them? Because they are saying that they do not trust the MPs that they themselves brought to the House. Remember that in Kenya, for you to become an MP, you first go through the nomination. They ask them how some of their major partners in their coalition conduct their primaries. And you realize that the ticket is always given to the highest bidder. So that when they have given the ticket to the highest bidder and has come to the House, it is therefore they have themselves to blame when such leaders therefore cross over, because they have understood that it is pure interest and nothing more. So that this should also be a wake-up call to them that going forward, there is need to invest in credible party primaries that bring credible people to the House, people that then can advance the interests not only of the coalition, but also of the people. So I think that in my view, of course, there is a lot of mischief from the side of Azimio, but then that mischief, I think, is properly being arrested by the Kenya Kwanza administration, for instance, by making sure that they do not spend a lot of time and energy discussing trivialities like who should be on which team. But if you asked me, I think that having Adan Keynan in the team was helping Azimio advance their case, because they are saying that Adan Keynan is their member. So if he were in the team, it means that they had a one member extra, and therefore that would make their case better. But then now that they insisted that, I think that we have also seen the grace of God this morning, that today Kenyans would have been taken to the streets to demonstrate, simply because we have one MP who was included in the team, and that the other side was not comfortable with him. So that we would have gone to the streets for what I would call a triviality. But then now that the talks are ongoing, it is important that we have these talks. It is important that we hear the other side. It is important that the government hears what are the demands of the Azimio and address them. I have seen them saying that they need to, that there is consensus that we should establish the office of the leader of official opposition. I will tell you that, of course, that will need us to go to a referendum. And I will plead with also with Kenya Kwanza leadership that because times have proved that pure presidential system does not augur well with most democracies, that as they engage, that we, of course, we may have to go back to the people through a referendum and ensure that we set up an executive structure that accords with our traditions and our politics.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. On the issue of Keynan, their argument was that part of the issues on the table is the issue of buying MPs. So they said right from the bat it's not something they could put up with or sanction. But Solomon, this is what accompanies this headline: hope at last. Are you optimistic? Are you optimistic that something tangible will come out of these talks? And I ask that because Bishop Anthony Muheria said if you cannot even agree on the membership of the committee, how hopeful should we be?
Of course, when we stop talking, we start fighting. So we must continue talking to stop any incidents where we might find ourselves fighting. Because talks always ease things up, and we are able to sort out a few issues that we can be able to agree on without being as ridiculous as going to the streets and having confrontations with police officers where people die, where properties are destroyed. So I think demonstrations should be the last resort in the country, because it is so draining to the economy of the republic. But having said that, let me talk about the list as it is. You know, the good book tells us that we should love our neighbors as we love ourselves. You know, God in his own wisdom acknowledged that we love ourselves first, so that we are able to love our neighbors. Wanja, my friend, is happy that Keynan has been kicked out from the Kenya Kwanza list. Keynan belongs to Jubilee, where Wanja claims to belong. But let me look at the list of Azimio. Ledama Olekina, ODM. Edwin Sifuna, ODM. Millie Odiabu, ODM. Otiende Amolo, ODM. Amina Munyazi, ODM. Enoch Wabua, Wiper. Kosing, KUP. 7. Out of 7 members, a list that was forwarded for consideration by Azimio, there is no single member of parliament from Jubilee. Considering the fact that Jubilee has 28 elected members of parliament in the National Assembly and 5 senators in the Senate, a total of 33. I mean, in the wisdom of the leadership of Azimio, they found it right to consider someone like Kosing, who is, I think, the honorary member of parliament from KUP. Wiper is way below Jubilee in terms of membership. So I don't know at what point we just stopped loving ourselves so much and loved others before loving ourselves. I mean, this thing is about inclusivity. So a political party would always want to see their agenda and principles advanced. what we are going to have in the bipartisan, and I would like people to have to remember how BBI started. You know, BBI started with a handshake. And we were all like, okay, so it's handshake, so what next? We all didn't know that it would go that far. To an extent where, out of a handshake, we were almost ending up with constitutional amendments. So we don't know where the bipartisan talks are going to lead us. And I can assure you, these are not small talks. They will end up in a bigger thing. Therefore, if you are not in the bigger thing, you are out. If you're not on the table, you are on the menu. And that's why people fight for space in that. That's why, if you look at the list of Kenya Kwanza, it is inclusive. If you look at the principles in Kenya Kwanza, Musalia Mudavadi, Wetangula, William Ruto himself, and the rest, and the other big fish in Kenya Kwanza, they are all feeling represented. Come to Azimio. The bigger fish in Azimio are Jubilee, ODM, and Wiper. We can clearly see that Jubilee is out. So does it mean that in the major decisions that are going to come out of the bipartisan talks, Jubilee is likely to be out in terms of what is going to be discussed? Okay. So I find it quite funny that anyone would celebrate that Kainan is out. Ed is a Jubilee member. But I will tell you the truth. Why ODM and Wiper would not be comfortable with listing out a member of Jubilee Party is that they have lost control of the members of parliament who belong to Jubilee Party. They are not able to take care of their interests. They lost them long time ago, and it started in parliament. Okay. Where we had, even in issues like parliamentary service.
So now, family, we have gotten into the topic of conversation,
yes,
which is Mount Kenya, the scramble for Mount Kenya in a way.
Yes.
Yeah, finish your point.
So coming to where it started, because it didn't start with the list. Remember, I worked in, I was a member of Azimio NEC as being the chairperson of the Youth League in Azimio. And I resigned like 2 months ago or 3 months ago. This thing, I started seeing it coming. We are here, we have the numbers, we have, I mean, a lot of interest in the leadership of the next government, but ODM always treated us like non-equals, starting with the Parliamentary Service Commission, where there was a reserve for 1 position for Jubilee, 1 position for Wiper, and 2 positions for ODM. ODM took 3 positions and gave 1 position to Wiper. Again, Jubilee locked out. So this thing started immediately after this parliament came into being, and ODM has mistreated the other members, and actually the members have opted to look for other ways of surviving in these political spheres of life. All
right. And Omula, I'll come to you next, but Wanja, there's a question you were asked, which is what he says he's surprised Wanja does not love herself. And let me just make a clarification. I was right in the first instance. You know, my cousin Chris Mutuku watches this show every morning, and he's a devout Catholic, and I had said Archbishop, then I was not sure, then I was like, Bishop Anthony Muheria, Archbishop Anthony Muheria. Thank you very much for that, Chris. But Wanja, how do you bend it? And kidogo naona uko outnumbered. It was not my intention.
Najipenda, but certainly hatujafika not more than 2/3 ama ndio not more than 1/3. I'm also a Catholic, so yes, it's a Bishop Anthony Muheria. He's known for many things, including talking about political hygiene, and political hygiene is carrying yourself in a dignified way. If you have come to AM Live to advance the issue of political A, you don't go to advance the issue of political B or C. I've used AM Live, but basically I meant like Parliament or the county assembly. So what are we saying? First and foremost, let us make it very clear for all Kenyans that when you're going to the tables of bipartisanship, we are not going to look for an outcome of what is in there for Jubilee or for DM or for me or for who. The spirit behind the bipartisan talk is diagnosing and treating. We are going for an MRI to find out what is wrong with our body, and then we shall diagnose kama ni antibiotics tukunywe hadi tupone. So when you talk about what is there for Jubilee or what is there for ODM, that is being looking at very short-term gains. For us, we are seeing and asking ourselves, what is in there for Kenyans? How can we get over this issue of perennial election, after the election, who the winner takes it all, people are unhappy, let's go to the judiciary. We are going to look for long-term solutions to the problem that ails us after every electoral cycle. So it's not what we get as Jubilee or what we get as ODM. Number two, I might add and say, if indeed it is about what political parties are getting, then doesn't it also give us an opportunity to say, because we are looking at the bigger picture, then it also qualifies that we also need the extra parliamentary, where because for them it is what they are getting as individuals, let's also concurrently have town halls, so that our moms and our shushus can also talk with their own native languages, so that we can capture the voices of the real people, because the laws are there to serve and to make lives of people better. Okay. So for me, if that is the issue, then why can't we have extra parliamentary?
Okay.
That said, you know, people are also not new in Kenya. We have come a long way as a country, and it is also not new for us to know that there has been times in our history where the executive has tried to have control of the judiciary and the legislature. Remember, 30 years ago, or 29 years, 31 years ago, we were the same people who were fighting for multipartyism. So when one person closes the floor and says that I'm advancing the ideas of person B, the other one closes and the other closes, we can also say that they did not close out of their own will. It is invisible hands that we have had and known, unless you are new in Kenya and unless you don't follow the politics, that there is someone who is very quick to muzzle multipartyism, so that tomorrow they'll make a ridicule of my party, tomorrow they'll make a ridicule of party D and C, and before you know it, we are a one-party state. So we are also seeing a lot of red flags, left, right, and center, whereby it seems like all parties are being directed towards one cowshed, maybe not a cowshed or a chicken shed, or I don't know which shed, so that they can be fitting in one particular coalition. Lastly, Azimio is a coalition political party. You know, in 2022, there was a change in law whereby a coalition can be a political party. So when they see us as Azimio saying that these are our 7 members, we are talking as a coalition political party. Raila Odinga, when they vied with Martha, you know, they vied as Azimio political party. So the other side should know that we are people who are very grounded. We are the people who know what is good for us. And we say when we say these are our 7 members, do not come to tell us that these are not enough, this one is not there, who is missing. You worry about your side. But the moment you come with bad faith, unclean hands, clenched fists, ridicule, and funny dealings, then we have to disagree with you fundamentally. But I'm happy that there has been recent development since yesterday. Okay, so are you saying you feel as Jubilee, yeah, and I'm hesitant to use Asili, yeah, but just to make the distinction, yeah, as the original Jubilee, not the breakaway, do you feel adequately represented, accommodated within Azimio? Who is mourning more than the bereaved? Us, you know, us, have we mourned? Have we complained? Have we said we are not unhappy? We are in that bipartisan talks. But where Solomon is concerned, it led him to switch. As Azimio, we are there. We are there.
I think
okay, we are in the bipartisan talks with Azimio coalition party.
Olive, we have demonstrated as Kenya Kwanza that we are open to the bipartisan talks wholeheartedly by removing Canaan, because they were complaining about one individual. You know, in Parliament, we have over 340 something members of Parliament who are competent and can be represented in these talks. It is very unfortunate, and I can support Solomon, because he's right, that Jubilee being second most, largest party within the Azimio coalition parties, cannot even have one member represented in this committee. That can only indicate that there's conmanship in this agreement, and I can tell you for a fact that even Wanja does not know the Azimio coalition agreement contents. They are not aware. I've seen members of Parliament even, complaining. They don't understand, or they are not even, they are not in possession of that document. Therefore, it only shows that they are not genuine enough, they are not willing to participate and even to occupy their rightful place in that coalition. So I believe that they should come to the table openly without hiding any card. From what Wanja is saying about having town hall meetings, it only shows that there's a hidden card. These people are planning to introduce BBI, and that's why they're advocating for extra parliamentary process. We have said that let us follow the law. The president was sworn in to uphold, protect, and respect the constitution. And that's why everything must be done within the framework of the law. And that is why we don't have to duplicate issues. There are so many reports that have been written about the Wako report, Akiumi report. Why can't we implement these reports? All these people, they are talking about the churches, the people, town hall meetings. Why can't they come to parliament and participate through public participation, which is provided for under Article 108. So it is only prudent that we be genuine, follow the law, and advance the interests of the people, not individual interest. And that is why Jubilee should now stop complaining. I think Wanja is very comfortable. Maybe she's, having some bromance with the Secretary General, who is the former.
So
because
Omulo,
Who does he mean? I'm able to speak for myself.
In terms of,
Yeah.
you know, Kioni is benefiting because you were told that is the one who is, disconstructing the Jubilee party by utilizing funds that are meant for developing the party by buying sufurias for Maandamano. So maybe in that line, there are people who are benefiting from the proceeds of that money, political parties fund, that are meant to develop this party. And that's why there's a lot of wrangles within Jubilee party. So maybe Wanja is comfortable because, when you're enjoying and you're part and parcel of the people who are ruining the party, then you will not even support any initiative that is supposed to support a process within the coalition. So I believe the Political Parties Act, which was enacted in 2011, can only manage and control political parties, but they cannot specifically dictate to political parties, because these members like Canaan, they are enjoying their right, their political right, under Article 38. They are supposed to move freely from other parties. That is a political right. You can cross the floor. It does not mean that they were bought. It does not mean that they were coerced.
Then why are you insisting on Sabina Chege remaining, is it chief whip, minority whip?
Yes.
For Azimio,
can
if
I
you're
just
no
come in?
longer, yes,
Let me
respond,
just come
please.
in, because you see they are talking about Jubilee from a point of hearsay, misinformation, fake news, malinformation, rumors, gossips, such things. Just to make it clear, you see, there is a reason why Political Act of 2011 created an office called the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties. If we are talking about the wrangles, because the conversation has degenerated or generated to the issue of Jubilee, there has been a series of events, one of them being that there was a so-called change in leadership. There was a matter that was disputed in still a court called the Political Party Dispute Tribunal, and the outcome of that matter is that the so-called changes in leadership were deemed to be null and void, of no consequence whatsoever. I might just add, you see, when you're talking about issues of sufurias and saying that political resources are being used in buying sufurias, you are trivializing such important issues. You see, for those of us who went to some of Kenyan high schools and we did a bit of literature, there's something that was called a story within a story, and there was something called symbolism. In the small, even in the CBC books, when you see there is a story of a fisi and a story of a sungura, basically what they are using the symbolism to say that a sungura is cheeky, is playful, ni mjanja, and a fisi, just in the end, a lion is seen to be a symbol of being brave. So the issue of sufuria is not to be trivialized, that we are very happy working with spoons and muikos. It is an issue that is affecting our moms and our dads and our mashinani people. And just to add, those issues of saying, oh, Secretary General, you are benefiting, you are talking, you are getting, those are just rumors. You see also, there are no things you say, because you can also be asked to say, How do you know? You know, that's an allegation.
Mulo, you've been told to substantiate by
So you can't even substantiate.
And what I want to hear from you, because you said it is their right to move, right?
Yeah.
So why are you insisting that Sabina Chege remains? Why are you fighting at the removal of Sabina Chege as deputy minority? We come back with that on the other side of this break. All right, welcome back to AM Live. When we were on break, Kidimwaga was interpreting Solomon Kuria's statement, and he told me that Solomon has not defected, how he has understood his comments, but he belongs to Jubilee Kenya. The Kenya coming from Kenya, because I know for the purposes of this conversation, we could get confused. So, tukona Jubilee Asili represented na Jubilee Kenya. But yes, I had asked you the question on Sabina Chege.
You asked me to justify why I'm saying Kioni is carrying sufurias. You know, let me tell you, Kioni has been accused, and as other political parties, we empathize with the Jubilee Party because there's a lot of confusion in that party. And we believe that, you know, Jubilee, through Kioni, has really mismanaged the running of Jubilee Party, which is provided for in their constitution. And is the initiator, is the one who came up with Sufuria movement without thinking or even calling members a parliamentary group meeting to come up with policy proposals or even you know, amendments that maybe are meant to address or arrest the situation of cost of living. So it is like, it is comedy, you know. To us, we see it as comedy. You know, when you see somebody initiating and carrying sufuria, and I was told, we were informed that there are many members who are supplied. They were given tenders of supplying sufurias to protesters. It is not bad because it's a symbol, because there's something you are advocating for. Okay. But it is not the real issue that they're supposed to address. Okay. Look at Jubilee Party. They have never called for a parliamentary group meeting. Members of parliament are strangled. They have said they have participated in the coalition agreement. They don't understand. They have never read the content. They don't know what is happening. They have a right as members of parliament to move to other political parties under Article 38. They are saying, look at the coalition agreement, after 6 months after election, they are supposed to, they can leave. They can resign from that coalition and they can form another post-election coalition with other political parties. So it is only good to be honest, to tell Kenyans that Jubilee needs to organize themselves. I know it is a political, we don't want to, you know, anticipate what they are doing or maybe interfere with their internal affairs, but we pray that being a former ruling party, they need to be an example to other political parties and show us the way.
All right. Kidi, did former President Uhuru Kenyatta step up too late, or had he no business to begin with showing up at the Jubilee headquarters to defend his staff?
Olive, I am waiting very patiently so that we get to the crux of this question on who is the real Mau Mau. And part of why that question is important, especially in central Kenya politics. Part of why there was a huge blowback against Jubilee in central Kenya in 2022 was because of the massive mismanagement of the economy in the last 10 years. Of course, a lot of people find it convenient to blame COVID-19, but they want to blame the COVID-19 in isolation. It must be understood that by the time we were getting into the COVID-19 in 2020, we were in what economists have described as a perfect storm. So that we only wanted a small trigger and we would be in economic deep waters. It must also be understood that the people who are telling us that the president should manage the economy, but that's the same economy experts have told us that is recovering, and recovery takes time. The same people who mismanage the economy were unable to manage their own elections. And besides being unable to manage their own elections, they're also unable to manage their own political parties. So Uhuru Kenyatta showing up at Jubilee headquarters simply demonstrates the lack of touch that is in Jubilee. In the here and now, 7 months after elections, I think that it is disingenuous on the part of Azimio generally, and Jubilee in particular, Uhuru Kenyatta in particular, ODM in particular, to use the economic anxieties of the people of Kenya to advance their own political interests. It must be known again that traditionally politics has been organized between capital and labor. That is why you have the Republican Party being the party of the owners of capital. The the Democratic Party being the party of the unions. You go to the US, there is to the UK, there is the Tory party, the Conservative Party, the party of the owners of capital. We must tell the people of Kenya that today, the ongoing maandamano is a convergence between the owners of capital and their political agents using the people of Kenya, especially the poor people of Kenya, as political cannon fodder to get back at the president. Because the question of the election is was sufficiently litigated. These other questions can be addressed in Parliament, and Parliament as an institution has got sufficient capacity to deal with these issues. And that is where I disagree respectfully with my beautiful sister Maina Wanja, that there must have extra parliamentary debates, conversations. Because whereas the Constitution says that that we can exercise our sovereignty directly or indirectly, we can only exercise it indirectly when directly when the people we have elected, people we pay, people we give security, are unable to discharge that mandate. And let it be demonstrated that they are unable to discharge that mandate. But when you send an MP elected in your ticket, an MP that you nominated through your own process, at least for a moment, don't take people of Kenya for a ride and give them a chance to have value for money. Okay. Thank you.
All right, Solomon.
Yes.
Yeah, I had Kimani Ichung'wah on the floor of Parliament, and he said, you know, the former president is disgracing the office by, you know, availing himself, you know, at the Jubilee headquarters and telling the police to stand down. Who is he to tell the police to stand down? He should respect the independence of the police. But who has had his name constantly in their mouths? This election was phrased. The kid is laughing because it was a direct translation. This, your campaign, sorry, not your campaigns, because we're Baduko.
You must declare.
He's in Jubilee, Kenya.
He's in Jubilee, Kenya.
I am in Jubilee.
You're in Jubilee.
Yes.
So, Kenya Kwanza, in the campaign period,
Yes.
made this a referendum on Uhuru Kenyatta. When Azimio began Maandamano, they said Uhuru Kenyatta is the one sponsoring Maandamano. Uhuru Kenyatta's family has not paid, they've defaulted on taxes. To the point where you had Mama Ngina coming up and saying, you hold the instruments of power, why are you complaining to the Kenyan people? Take action. And where the Mau Mau now came from. She hosted a Mau Mau vet at her residence, and you know, Rigathi Gachagua has constantly told us, yeye ni mtoto wa Mau Mau, chuma ya kitambo. Yeye si kama Serelak, referring to President Uhuru Kenyatta. But Mama Ngina, in response just the other day, said, siku hizi kila mtu ni mjuaji with regard to Mau Mau. There's a time Uhuru Kenyatta said, mkiona paka Simba amenyeshewa msidhani ni paka. Aren't you the ones who have provoked consistently former President Uhuru Kenyatta?
One thing, first things first. Quickly, let me respond to a question you asked him, and he was, I think he didn't hear it correctly, about Sabina. Why we insist that Sabina Chege should still remain as the deputy minority whip. Now, let me introduce you to something referred to as parliamentary party in the parliament. For a party to be recognized as a parliamentary party in parliament, there's a threshold that it should meet. It should have at least 18 elected members of parliament. For the longest, Wiper has never been recognized as a parliamentary party. And you know why. It was recognized these elections as a parliamentary party. So once Jubilee is recognized as a parliamentary party, once it gets out of the yokes of prison in Azimio, with 28 members in the National Assembly, Jubilee now qualifies squarely as a parliamentary party. It therefore means it qualifies to produce members to the parliamentary committees. It therefore can still act as a minority party in the National Assembly and Senate. Now you get my point. Let me now come to President Uhuru Kenyatta.
No, actually, I don't get your point. If the minority the leader of minority in the National Assembly is Azimio,
Yes.
then they need somebody from their side. They get to choose
No,
who will whip them, who will mobilize them.
Why it is Azimio?
Because is Jubilee KK or is Jubilee Azimio?
Before we went to elections, Azimio had Jubilee inside.
Yes.
Clearly what you can see today is Jubilee wanted to exit. Once Jubilee exits, it will therefore then be recognized as a parliamentary party by its independently away from Azimio.
But you will still
Today,
not be the minority side.
No, it doesn't mean that because ODM are the majority in the minority side, it doesn't mean that a leader...
But you are no longer in the minority period.
No,
Azimio is a political party.
Get this clearly. I want you to get. Even the one member we are talking about from KUP, called Kosing. Do you know he can become the leader of minority in parliament? From that single party. Remember the case of the Senate majority leader who just retired, the former minister for communication. I think he is from West Pokot or somewhere. Don't remember his name.
Pogisio?
Pogisio was from Kanu, and he was the leader of majority in Senate. So what I'm saying, it's all about how a party is recognized.
But within the majority side, they
they
had declared fealty to the majority side. In this case, you are distancing yourselves from the minority.
And we shall be recognized as a parliamentary party. I think that's a whole lesson that we should discuss.
Wanja?
Yeah, if I
For the limitations of time, let me vacate that because it was not the main question. Let me come to the President, Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yes.
And tell you, I will answer you with some gloves in the heart because he was my former boss. And I worked for him since 2013 when I was in college until 2022. And there's one principle I believe in politics, that there are kings and then there are king makers. And kings can't be king makers. Kings are born to be kings. Anytime kings try to be king makers, they fail terribly. And we have a recent case of Olusegun Obasanjo in Nigeria. He has tried now for the second time since he left office. He has not been able to bring a presidential candidate who won an election in Nigeria. What I want us to tell those people who are advising our former president to engage in the murky politics of the Republic of Kenya, to stop misleading the good man. They are destroying his legacy, clearly. You know, drawing him from Ethiopia on a podium where he was receiving an award for bringing back peace in Tigray, Ethiopia, and coming all the way to working with Gaucho to the party headquarters, and even assaulting a loyalist like Solomon Kure. I was assaulted by those goons who came with the president because I happened to meet them at the gate.
And this was the case that, I can't remember who it was on the floor of parliament, who said, it was I think Millie Odhiambo. Can you prove that he's the one who came with those goons?
No, I'm saying, and actually, I'm not saying that he came with them. They followed him. They came with him. I mean, you
and
can...
assuming there were
the
goons.
clips are there. And
assuming.
And I can't assume because I was there. I can't clearly assume because I was there. I'm giving you right-hand information because I was there. I was a victim. I was assaulted by those goons. And clearly, sometimes, and I know, some people somewhere may not be happy with what I'm saying, but I know if President Uhuru Kenyatta happens to be watching AM Live, he will like what I'm saying because leaders appreciate when they are told some naked truth by people.
And what is the naked truth in this instance?
The naked truth is he should vacate politics. And reading whatever we are reading there, the Presidential Retirement Benefits Act, it says the president shall be expected to offer counsel to the sitting president. It is there. Shall be expected. That is how highly he is regarded. And also,
assuming the sitting president is open to receiving such counsel.
Number two, I'm telling you about is that the same retired president can be assigned roles by the sitting president to represent the republic. Have we seen that happening? Yes. He is the peace envoy. In his inauguration, the president appointed him as the peace envoy, as the retired president. Coming to the benefits, after 6 months, once he leaves office, he shall not, actually the word is shall, and you know the meaning of shall in the Constitution. Shall means there is nothing like may or but.
It is mandatory.
Yes, it is mandatory. The president shall not belong to a political party. And that is why, after the 6 months elapsed, last month in March, we now this month brought Sabina Chege as the party leader, because there can never be a vacuum in leadership of the Jubilee Party. So, my dear, I want to tell you this. President Uhuru Kenyatta has a bigger exercise on his plate. Bringing peace in this region of Africa is big role enough for him to ignore and avoid, party shenanigans, like coming to deal with the issue of Kioni and Kanini Kega. I mean, he's dealing there with Abiy and Tigray. He's in Sudan. He's in Congo, trying to bring peace. Then come all the way down to deal with Kanini and Kioni. Surely, I think that is way above him.
So the question then is, who are the owners of Jubilee Party then? But before that, you had mentioned the Presidential Retirement Benefits Act of 2003, and I have a Mwakenya in my ear.
6.
I have a of 2000. No, it's 2003.
Yes.
Yeah.
Olive, could I come in?
Yes, one second. Okay. I have a Mwakenya in my ear. Her name is Roslyn Obala.
Yeah.
So she has asked me. Yeah. So yes, the Act in Section 6 reads, a retired president shall not hold office in any political party for more than 6 months after ceasing to hold office as president. Because I'm drawing from the report filed in the Daily Nation, because there have been threats to have them not receive the benefits contained herein. On that ground, it also provides that, notwithstanding the provisions of Section 3, the National Assembly may, on a motion supported by the votes of not less than 2/3 of the members thereof, resolve that a retired president or his surviving spouse, as the case may be, shall not be entitled to the whole or any part of the benefits conferred by this Act. And on the grounds that the retired president ceased to hold office on account of having acted in willful violation of the Constitution, has since ceasing to hold office been convicted of an offense or held office in or actively engaged in the activities of any political party contrary to the provisions of Section 6(1). So I'll give you that one. That is indeed what the Act states. But Roslyn is asking, does that trump Section Article 36 of the Constitution, which says every person has the right to freedom of association, which includes the right to form, join, or participate in the activities of any association of any kind? Kirimwaga.
Thank you very much for letting me in to answer that question. That the practice in presidential systems world over is that the outgoing president, however much he may disagree with the incoming president, must at the very least give the incoming president a chance, some time to be able to put in place an administration and for that administration to take root. For instance, in 2016, President Barack Obama was fundamentally different from, views were fundamentally different from those of President Donald Trump. But you realize that the entire 2017, President Barack remained quiet, restrained himself from commenting on the issues of President Trump until during midterm. So at the very least, and in the spirit of decency, we would have expected that President Uhuru gives at least President William Ruto at least a year or a year and a half, so that he can be able to come out and point out that the president is not delivering.
No, but again, this guy, no, but Kidi, to be fair, this guy has been quietly in the wings, flying to Ethiopia and the likes,
Very
as Solomon told us.
Yes.
But who has constantly accused him of sponsoring maandamano? Who has constantly, accused him
that.
of, what am I
I've gotten your question, so let me answer it.
Apart from sponsoring maandamano, his Northlands evading tax. Yes, thank you very much. His Northlands was raided. This guy, that may have been what pushed him now back into the limelight.
To use the words of Wanja Maina, is that nobody is new in Kenya. And therefore, President Uhuru Kenyatta was the chairman of the Azimio, or I think is still the chairman of the Azimio. And Raila Odinga, of course, was his personal, besides being his personal friend, it was also his presidential candidate of choice. So it would only have been prudent for the president, or to a former president, to speak to Right Honorable Raila Odinga to ask him to withhold the demos, at least for a year, because
no, but you see, it is within Raila. He cannot tell Raila Odinga to. It is within Raila Odinga's right to.
No, Olive, give me a second. Give me a second. Maina, I want to give you a chance to respond comprehensively. So let me make this point. Yes. So let me make this point. That remember that when Azimio first called these demonstrations, we were told that there was a whistleblower. Remember that then, secondly, we were told that we need to depart from conducting elections as we are doing, and that we should be having devolved electoral systems like it is done in the US. So let me put it to you, that in 2016, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton. So let Raila Odinga be Hillary Clinton, and Donald Trump is William Ruto. Do you think that Raila Odinga would have accepted that he has won on the popular vote, but then we are aware, and you know how he likes quoting Article 1 of the Constitution, and then William Ruto is Donald Trump? Do you think that Raila Odinga would have accepted defeat? So I think that let us also, as we look at examples from other jurisdictions, let us appreciate that we must also have systems that accord with our unique peculiarities. Lastly, I want you to take you down the history lane. That in 1960, a young President John F. Kennedy was elected against the Vice President Richard Nixon. But then Kennedy, while he was dealing with the Cuban crisis of 1960, constantly relied on the counsel of President David Eisenhower. That is how it happens. So naturally, we expected, at least with the ordinary people of Kenya, that President Uhuru Kenyatta would have held its coalition to stop with the maandamano because they were premature to begin with. That is, if the intent was to attempt to address the question of cost of living. Because time has proved that the allegation that there was a whistleblower, of course, is in tandem with the description that Azimio got in the Supreme Court. Thank you.
Kidi, before, Wanja, I'll come to you and Omulo as well. But Kidi, before we move on from this, can former President Uhuru Kenyatta contest, for example, the Gatundu South parliamentary seat?
Of course, the Retirement Benefits Act is very clear that a former president should not be in active politics. And I think that there is a good reason.
But should he choose so what would be the option? He would give up these perks.
I think that we must also tread on that path very cautiously. Remember, I said that ordinarily politics is organized between capital and labor. We know, look at the benefits that say the Kenyatta Inc., that is the family businesses, accrued during the 10 years when the president was in power. So that to be...
but does the Constitution bar him?
No, the Constitution does not bar him, but I want to make this point. So give me a second to explain this point. That over time, the president, of course, acquired a huge personal benefit. So that when he is to be led to use that huge personal benefit to then destabilize the political environment would be unjust. Why do I call it destabilize? Because he can easily survive without the perks that comes with his office on account of his own personal fortune.
But how has he destabilized things?
You know,
Olive, allow me to just
you are not making...
Okay.
Yeah. Let me just come in. Let me just come in and say that today we have really mixed issues. It's like a cocktail of issues. One, I'll just first and foremost, you see, when there is so much preoccupation about the issue of Jubilee Party, I feel obliged to be added a minute, because people are talking about a house. You see, in the language of my mother, they say, if you want to know the inner workings of a house, don't ask passers-by, people who come to take tea or come to eat goat meat when they are visitors. Ask people who sleep in that house. Even before we go round and round and round, every party has a constitution. Even today, if I want to register a party and call it Nairobi Political Party, I will be required to deposit a constitution that will govern me according to how I've agreed together with the other vision bearers. Jubilee Party is not a briefcase party without a constitution. What does the constitution say? The constitution says that officials of the political party are elected by the delegates of the party. Who are the delegates? They are our members. I happen to sit in the executive committee of the party. Do you know what happened? And this is a real issue that even it's on your website and on your YouTube. We stood in front of people, the delegates. That event was at KICC there. They stand like this and say, this is going to be the representative of disabled people nationally. Are you happy? Yes. In such a case, if there was also another person who would have been interested, they would have said, this is Njeri, this is Wanja. Who do you want? Is this Njeri? Yes. So Wanja, thank you for your aspiration, but people don't want you. So the beginning and the end of the matter of the leadership of Jubilee lies with the delegates. It might also interest the country to know that there is a delegate conference in the next 2 weeks. That is on the 22nd too.
Yes, at the Bomas of Kenya.
Correct. The party leader of Jubilee Party, like any other Kenyan, has rights. And you know, for example, when there are obnoxious sentiments like that person can personally live comfortably without benefits and pensions, well, I think that is the description, the definition of discrimination. Remember, in Article 27, that is for all of us, whether it's big or tall, they say that no one will be discriminated too. When you are given, you see these issues that you are calling retirement benefits, all those words, basically sini pension. You are paid a pension for work done. Unalipwa pesa ya kuwa mwalimu sababu ulikuwa unafunza kwa miaka yako, sasa umeanza kulipwa. So no one decides that by look of you and by look of your family, you don't deserve a pension. I think that is obnoxious, and if we start on that path, tomorrow we shall also say, oh, you know, Olive, let's not pay her.
He has not, you know, Wanja, also be fair, he has not said that the former president does not deserve a pension.
Yes.
He said he is able to, in his estimation, live comfortably, even without this
But how can you speak?
Retirement benefits, not pension. It is different.
How can you
Totally
speak
different.
about a person and how they are able to live comfortably in their future and you don't know about their financial obligations? But even that, I think, is just a deviation
I think it
from
is
the
common
rule.
knowledge.
I think retirement benefits.
In a minute, so that also Mulo gets a chance to respond. Kidi?
Yeah.
My sister Wanja, I must tell you that I, of course, hold President Uhuru Kenyatta in very high esteem, if not for anything else than as the former president of the Republic of Kenya. But it must be known that in 2013, when President Uhuru Kenyatta came to power, Business Daily, in one of its publications, said that President Uhuru Kenyatta family businesses has went into an expansion drive. That was in 2013. The net effect of that is that there was a hostile takeover of the dairy sector, that the only surviving companies in that sector were the Githunguri, the one that owned Fresher, and then there was the KICC.
10 years is a long time.
Let me
A lot
tell
might
you.
have changed.
Let me put it to you.
Let's
Let me
just
put it
focus
to you
on
why.
the issue. I think we
Yes.
shouldn't go to that
I
direction.
have
It's
to,
not
okay,
important.
I have to bring this conversation
Let us
to
focus
a
on the
close.
real
But
world
Kidi,
more.
just
Yeah.
some feedback
No.
I've gotten here on my phone. Somebody says, this is a terrible misrepresentation of the U.S. example.
Yeah.
JFK never sought the opinion of Dwight Eisenhower
Correct.
until after the Cuban Missile Crisis was over. Secondly,
Yes.
Cuban Missile Crisis occurred in 1962 and not 1960.
Correct.
And finally, he's confusing the Bay of Pigs crisis that happened in 1961 with the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah.
The example on Trump, I'm told this is just some feedback. On Trump is also wrong. Trump refused to acknowledge Biden victory, despite the U.S. being the perfect example
No,
of
that
a
is
president.
2020.
of a
We are talking
democracy,
about
yeah.
2016, 2017.
I think let's
All right,
That hasn't
Omulo-
made.
I-
Let me
no,
respond.
Omulo, nimeona umekuwa marginalized.
Actually,
Have the
I
last
was almost
word.
complaining. But, you know, we respect and we recognize the fact that Uhuru Kenyatta remained the party leader of Jubilee until and as when the Presidential Retirement Benefit Act came to effect 6 months after he handed over power, which, you know, we have to follow the law. The moment we saw the former president, who was elected by Kenyans on Jubilee ticket, the immediate former commander-in-chief of the defense forces, a man who was respected the whole country, demonstrating in the streets of Nairobi against young members of parliament who are just aspiring to take up the leadership of a party, to take it to the next level. It is something that is worrying to any other person. You know,
So
this is not the first time.
Wait.
The party leader who is supposed
President
to be
Uhuru Kenyatta
the former president,
Uhuru Kenyatta
yes, the former
demonstrated.
president. We saw him in the street of Nairobi with some small young people. Actually,
Are those demonstrations?
that
Were
is
those
demonstration. It
demonstrations?
actually was picketing.
Omulo.
You know, let me tell you, this is not the first time we have seen wrangles in political parties. Remember in 1997, 1998, when there was a wrangle in Ford, Kenya, between Raila Odinga and Kijana Wamalwa. And that has brought what we call the Enactment of Political Parties Act in 2011, which is supposed to regulate political parties, but they are not supposed to dictate. And that's why we have ADR mechanism, alternative dispute resolution mechanisms in political parties. So we don't want to interfere with the internal wrangles of Jubilee, but it is in the public domain. We know that what is happening. And the moment Uhuru Kenyatta, the former president, evoked Article 9 and 13 of the Jubilee Party Constitution by calling national delegates to remove NEC members who are legally formed within Jubilee Parliament, that is what brought the issue. And they also
There's no such agenda in our NDC.
Invoked
No.
the Section 6 of the Presidential Retirement Benefit Act, and they removed the former president. Because the former president is supposed to be a unifying factor in this country. Is supposed to participate in activities that promotes either environment, economic development,
but he
and
is
other
a
issues.
citizen and he has has
But you
political
see,
rights.
this
Okay,
law.
Omulo, I have to bring
Just
the conversation.
give me a minute.
to an
This
end.
law.
You know, yesterday
This law.
Yes. Okay.
Just a minute. This law, Presidential Retirement Benefit Act, was not created for an individual.
Yeah.
It was created to protect and respect the office of the presidency. All over the world, you see them participating in international issues of peace, development, environment.
Guys, I have to bring the conversation to a close there. And I'm not sure you can characterize former President Uhuru Kenyatta's appearance at the Jubilee headquarters as demonstrations.
I mean,
All right,
but
no.
I mean,
Conversation here.
the party
Who
leader.
is the real Mau Mau has been the topic of discussion, the scramble for Mount Kenya. We've had in studio Mulo Jr., who spoke last, Director of Political Affairs, ANC, Kirimwaga Policy and Governance Analyst, Solomon Kuria, Political Analyst, Wanja Maina, NEC member, Jubilee Party. Guys, if you're willing, next week, Friday, I will host you, because as Wanja aptly stated, we will continue this conversation on next week on Friday, as if their schedules allow, because as Wanja aptly stated, it is a cocktail of issues, including whether the Deputy President has been accused of employing, in the spirit of Mau Mau, guerrilla tactics. Right? And if you go to nation.africa, there is a video of the matatu, the bus that was burnt, the driver saying, "Police watched as I begged for help." Anyway, we get into that next week. Good morning.